into this episode, I just want to give you a quick primer. There's lots of things that have improved in this industry. Now, one thing that has improved is technology, right? Technology used to be your CRM. Now it's the ability to send targeted ads to specific age groups, specific geography, or category. One thing that is getting better and better is predictive analytics, right? And all companies are developing new predictive models. So if companies can predict buying or selling behavior or patterns, we can get in front of the seller sooner. Now, I think it's going to be a while before real prediction gets sorted out. So I'm not too worried about that in the short term. But there are a few things that I see sort of rumbling up on the horizon that maybe you should be aware of. And first is, you might be familiar with the lawsuit between Redfin and the DOJ. And basically, Redfin was suing because they're a broker, right? Redfin was suing for more transparency around buyer-broker commissions. So what they want to do is Redfin fundamentally, and this happened, by the way, NAR agreed to this, but Redfin wants to fundamentally remove the ability for buyer's agents to work for a buyer and get paid by the seller, right? They want buyers to pay their own buyer's agents directly. That means when you take on a new buyer, you're going to have to negotiate your payment, your fees up front. No more will you be able to meet somebody at Starbucks, sign an engagement letter, find a house, and then get paid by the seller at closings. Now, while this sort of transparency is always good, it's going to have an effect on agents, right? It's going to affect commissions in many markets. It's going to affect, the buyer's agent really was an entryway to people getting into the industry, right? When they don't know much of anything, you can meet somebody, you can find a house, right? You can do all the legwork and then you get paid, right? And then as you gain experience, you can move into the seller side, right? The listing side. This is going to fundamentally teamize, right? The buyer side. Because really, here in San Diego, right? The average price is about $850,000, right? So on a buy side, that commission is roughly $25,000. And I think a lot of buyers, when they're going to have to cut that check or add it to their mortgage payment, I think they're going to get sticker shock. Now, we're going to have to see what this ends up looking like over the next 18 months. But I think this is a call to action right now whereby agents, if you're going to focus on buyers, that you up your game. You're going to have to up your game. You're going to have to get really clear on what value you add to a transaction. I might do an episode on that. Hit me on Twitter if that sounds interesting. My handle is @SuperAgentsLive. Today's guest is in the prediction game. He is the founder of a startup called Likely.ai. Let's get to the show. Welcome to Super Agents Live. This is the one place where you can come and hear the most successful people in real estate. You'll hear how these super agents built their businesses, how they stay productive, and how they stay motivated. Who am I? My name's Toby Salgado, and I made my first $1 million in real estate. Yeah. And I'm your host for the next 30 minutes while we talk to yet another amazing real estate entrepreneur. Stay tuned.
Let's go! Yeah!
Today on the show, look, you guys know I'm always trying to find people and things and ideas that can increase your business and help your life, make things easier. I've been fascinated with AI over probably the last year. I think it's going to play more and more of a role in our lives in general. And certainly in real estate and how we run our business. And I think there are more and more companies building AI type tools to help you grow. Today's guest is the CEO and founder of an AI startup called Likely.ai. I'm thrilled to welcome Brad McDaneil. Brad, thanks for taking the time, man.
Hey, Toby, thank you very much for having me on. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to the discussion about kind of everything AI related and some of those trends we're seeing in the industry right now.
Well, so look, so let's talk about AI or let's try to orient everyone listening to what AI is, right? Because when people think of AI, they think of, it's in the early days. I think slowly it's changing, but you think of AI and you think of the Terminator, right? You think of, a self-learning machine that will outthink and out-know humans. But that's not. But we're certainly not there yet.
Nowhere close to it. Nowhere close to it.
Okay, all right. I disagree. Well, we can talk about that, but hold on. So when it comes to AI, like how would if you just met someone and you said, "Hey, I run an AI company," how would you explain it to somebody who doesn't know anything about AI and how it works in terms of helping somebody grow their business?
I mean, I would start by just talking about, that artificial intelligence is not as smart as people have been led to believe it is because of the movies and that get splashy headlines and whatnot like that. What it is it's great at pattern recognition. And pattern recognition can be on all types of levels. I mean, if you go to like deep learning, can I go into the geek speak a little bit? You're talking about multiple layers of neurons, and you have this logic jumping between these layers of neurons and non-linear associations and things that are basically self-driving cars. Like, why did it speed up? Why did it slow down? Right? And we apply deep learning to real estate, and it's a challenge because for a lot of reasons, which we can go into later. But when I meet someone on the street and talk just about artificial intelligence, think about it as, hey, there's lots of tasks in your life that can be either automated, not through the traditional automations, but through intelligence as a service, where rather than doing the same thing 1,000 times, you're doing maybe 10 things that take more time because there's a reason for doing those things. And that is how you can grow your business, by being smart about where you spend your time, what types of assets you build up and cultivate, which led me to founding Likely.ai. And it's really the kind of the second version of this business. I did about back in 2007, worst time ever, Toby, to start a real estate tech startup, thanks to the Great Recession that followed. But we were just too far in front, kind of on the bleeding edge of what the industry wanted, right? I mean, everyone thought that we were talking about magic ponies in the sky, and it was terrible. It didn't work because people thought it was like a genie. They were going to rub it and things would just fall out, when there really is what we've created is audiences, right? I mean, real estate needs good audiences. When 1% every quarter, 6% per year actually want to talk to an agent. Doing the traditional marketing, man, it's tough. It's really, really hard. So I know I'm going off the trail a little bit here with you, but that's the essence, I think, that I would pitch. And when I talk to my data science teams, that's what they reiterate constantly, is how there is a lot of false information about what AI is actually good at.
Right, and I think here's how I might explain it. Right, like so there's AI all over the place that we use today. Right, so the toothbrush, that you start up and runs for 3 minutes. Right, that's like AI. That's a dumb AI, right? Like you go, okay, 3 minutes, the thing's set, you use it, okay, I'm done. Right, it takes you out of the process and puts the machine in the lead, and that's like dumb AI. And then you get to like so you're in Austin, and Ojo, right? Ojo has AI, right? They have a couple patents around AI, and what Ojo is trying to do, right? They want to take incorporate a bunch of data, and then kick out recommendations, right? Recommendations that the AI can see patterns that maybe a human can't think of, right? A human might think of like, oh, I want to buy a house in 90210 and my budget is $1 million. And a human will go, okay, I'll take those inputs and put those in. AI might go, hold on a second, right? Here's a property that is literally 600 feet outside of the 90210 area code, and it's 800 grand, but it fits all your other requirements, right? Like a human may not see that, whereas software might see that pattern and then make a suggestion. I think when it comes to AI and what I want to understand what you're trying to tackle, but at the end of the day, right, for the software to be able to recognize patterns and kick out recommendations or ideas, right? You need the data, right? This is, Facebook and Google, right? They have the data. And and somebody like, I don't want to talk about Ojo too much, but somebody like Ojo, right? They're going and buying platforms, right? They're buying data sources, right? Zillow is doing this, right? Zillow has AI
Yeah.
with their. Okay, I don't want to. Again, sorry, Brad. I don't want to talk about other companies.
No, not at
But
all. I think you're right. I think all the points you're making are very, very valid. I mean, that's why our largest expense every month is data, right? I mean, we spend a lot in data housing, normalizing. They call it munging the data because it does. It comes back to the data, how quality it is, and then what types of different modeling techniques you use on that based upon the quality of the data and what your objective is. And so, I know the guys at Ojo really well. Rick Orr is a personal friend, and he got acquired by them about a year and a half or so ago with Real Savvy. And I think that those guys are doing great things. I think we're coming at the market slightly differently. They're kind of nurturing what's there, and what we went after was kind of, okay, there's this larger audience that's right now unaddressable, unattainable, because the only way you get to them is if you come through Zillow. If you come through, you have to drive all your traffic to some landing page somewhere. And I worked at Market Leader and Trulia and years as a senior product guy. And I understand the value that can come through those types of lead forms and so forth. And when we started we said, you know what, let's go off and rather than try to solve it through better, landing pages and optimized SEO and everything else, we said, let's invest in data scientists and data and servers and kind of the geeky side of the world, because we believe that, the technology is solid. The implementations in real estate to date, I think, have been very sloppy. If you look back and look at SmartZip or Offers or any of them, I'm not saying that they're bad companies by any means, just purely that they were marketing automation platforms, really kind of key, that then became more AI enabled. And AI is a grossly, again, overly used, misunderstood term when most of what they're talking about really is various forms of machine learning. And the big difference there to kind of educate the audience is machine learning, it solves these pattern recognition problems to make predictions or classifications or whatever it is that you're looking for. And artificial intelligence, like the truth, kind of like the umbrella term. So when you start to pull off those layers of that onion, there's a lot of those different terms down below, from regression analysis to, XG boost or cat boost, or you name all these versions of machine learning models that actually solve problems much more efficiently, especially if you assemble them in ways that are unique and that go after different problems individually. And then when you assemble them together, you get a really beautiful painting, I think, is a nice way to look at it. So in order to do that, though, you're right. We have so much data that we use every single day, both first and third party. And I think Ojo's, they've had kind of a war chest to go out there and acquire platforms. You're right. In order to get that unique data set and then apply a lot of different techniques. And they even, they purchased, they have a whole group down in the British Virgin Islands, that are kind of putting that person in the loop, they call it, to help refine the learning of that recommendation engine. It'll continue to get better and better at making those non-linear associations.
Right.
That you're speaking to.
Yeah. And they call that the human assisted AI, what they're doing down there. And I didn't mean to somewhat have you, compare and contrast your service versus others. I didn't mean to do that. What I'm trying to do, Brad, is I'm trying to get everybody sort of on, lined up with us a little bit. And I think, so if we look at, the only way to do is to sort of talk about other companies. So, if we talk about something like SmartZip, because I want to talk about what data you're getting, and then the people that are listening to this will go, oh man, I might want to use that, right? Where they should be prior to using a service or utilizing a service to like yours, to its fullest potential. So let me maybe. So you the Target story, right? This is sort of along the SmartZip lines, right? Target, a long time ago, you go in, Target collects, just like every single retailer, right? Collects as much data as they can about you. This was years ago. This is like 8 years ago, 9 years ago, right? Yeah. So this girl, this teenage girl, kept getting from Target these ads coupons, right? Like deals for all this baby stuff, right? Like baby carriages. What's that called? A stroller. I have 3 kids. I forget what that stroller is called. They have a stroller and diapers and like lotion that pregnant women use on their stomachs to not get stretch lines, right? And so this dad is seeing this mail and gets this idea that Target is trying to encourage his underage daughter to go get pregnant. So he throws a fit to Target and says, "Hey, why are you doing this? Stop doing it." Right? The poor Target manager doesn't know what's going on, and it turns out that a few months later, it turns out that this girl is pregnant. Right? Target knew because of what she was buying. She was buying bigger bags and she was buying all this tangential stuff related to being pregnant that Target knew even before the dad knew, right? This is the brilliance of pattern recognition. This is the brilliance of what AI could potentially do. And if we can get this right in real estate, right? If we can get to the point where someone we know, right, all the signals are there that someone wants to sell or buy prior to, them putting it out there in the world, right? This is where we as real estate agents can win, right? We can dominate.
That is completely true, and I love that story. And it's kind of funny. Another layer deep there, like what they found really is that it was unscented lotion within the beginning of the second trimester, and they also were buying large amounts of calcium, zinc, and magnesium within the first 20 weeks. And so that's how they differentiated from someone who was buying diapers or things related to babies, that baby's for a shower or for a friend or whatever, and who was someone who was actually pregnant. And then when you associate that with another 25 products, that's how you triangulate, okay, that's a prediction engine, right? That's what we do for real estate. And that is a great example. And I think you're going to ask probably more about that data and, how we are finding the people that are buying calcium and zinc and unscented lotion.
Right. That's exactly where we're going. But and I guess let me throw this into the gears here is the fact that, when it comes to collecting data, right? Like so we help agents grow their business, right? We put them on radio and television. We're behind this podcast. We're a marketing company, right? This is what we do. And, when we look at somebody calls us up and I go, okay, what are your assets, right? How big is your database? What do you know, right? Okay, in your database, okay, you have 3,000 people in there. Great, super. What are you doing to grow it? Number one. Number two, when you say you have 3,000 people in there, what do you have about these people? Do you just have a name and a phone number? Do you just have a name and an email address? Do you have a name, email address, and phone number? What else do you have? Because if you just have a name, if you have a database of 3,000 and you have a name and a phone number, okay, there's only so much we can do with that data. And the trick for agents or for small businesses in general is to gather as much data as you can about each one of your prospects, clients, whatever it might be. And I think agents really don't know how to do this. They're uncomfortable with it for some weird reason. And once they do get the data, right, the problem is they don't do anything with it. They don't know what to do with it. They're like, oh, I have all this stuff. I don't know what to do with it. And so are you seeing that same thing? And like how do you address that? What do you like? I guess talk about that a little bit. The amount of data or the failings of agents to collect this data to maybe later try to find patterns in it.
Yeah, so let's first call it what it is, right? There's 2 types of data that you just spoke about. One's explicit and one's implicit. To use a simple analogy of like the dating world, explicit data is you meet someone and they tell you their name, or you try to get their phone number if you're a good marketer in that essence, which we're not always successful at doing. Implicit data is the other type of data. That's behavioral data, right? So that's how they react within a group. Kind of what you can see and observe where they go, what types of clothes they're wearing, kind of do I fit this person? Do I want to get to know them better, right? So there's explicit and implicit. And when you speak about it to a database, the explicit data is what you get from a Zillow, from a lead form, from places. You get their name, their phone number, things they tell you. The implicit data is what is always missed. And the only people that are capturing that are the large platforms, which are why they are outperforming traditional brokerages from an agent transaction standpoint. I mean, it is astronomical. What your Redfin that's doing about 42 deals per agent per year versus a traditional brokerage, what you're at 6 or 7 transactions per year, right? And why is that? Because they're leveraging that implicit data in conjunction with the explicit data, right? And so what we look to try to do as a likely AI is from explicit and implicit data that we have, we can tell you, hey, these are the people you should go out and talk to. Very similar to how a Redfin, just because they're the largest kind of website that's also a brokerage, I'm using them as an example here, what they're doing on their back end. It's kind of like an Apple fully integrated solution, more or less, right? And so when agents get data, they usually have multiple platforms, right? So it's fragmented to the nth degree, almost to the point where it's unusable. So it's duplicated, it's dirty, it's hard to know who, chicken or egg, which one came first. And first thing you have to do is clean that database and have something that they can cultivate as an asset. We offer a product called Database Refresh, which is specifically designed to address that. If you have an address, city, state, zip, address, city, state, zip, you drag and drop it, and we actually do all that normalization. We verify that it's good addresses, not fat fingered. Then we append back a bunch of data about that property. So who lives there, when it was last sold, property characteristics, who the owner is, how it's being held, along with, is this property a likely seller based upon all that implicit data that we also have, or are they possibly a COVID distressed property, someone that could have been hurt by the pandemic or kind of financially strained along the way. What I strongly recommend, and I think since you're a strong marketer, you would agree with, is that agents, brokerages need to get so much better at actually having an asset that's a database, right? If they don't have one, they start, whether it's a Google spreadsheet or something.
Sorry, yeah, I apologize. I laughed too loud. I muted myself. Hey, Brett, I know you're on speaker. Your levels are coming in. Can you maybe take off speaker? Let's see how that sounds like, because I don't want anybody to miss what some of your value. I think so. We might have to turn you up.
Okay, sorry.
Man. That's a lot better. That's a lot better. Okay. So yeah, I think, man, the problem is you have to first convince, in your story, right? You have to first convince agents that having this data is good, that having this data is something that they should try and possess. I think that is the problem. If you, again, like the problem with agents they are such bad marketers. They're such, in general, such bad business people that they don't even see the value in a database, right? If I go, oh, dude, I tell people all the time, your business is your database. Fact, right? What are you doing to go grow it? And they go, nothing. And I go, okay, fine. What are you doing to harness the value, uncover the value in your database? And the answer is nothing. Or they think they're doing something, right? They think they're sending out emails. And I'm like, oh, right. But at the end of the day, so let's take the asset. Let's say that somebody's listening and they understand the value of the database, meaning that they go, okay, my database is an asset and there's value, right? There's dollars in that thing to get unlocked. What I would suggest to that person, right? I'd say, okay, well, you got to know, right? You got to talk to those people, right? And you need to uncover more data, right? You can't just have the explicit data that you mentioned earlier, right? We need to get some of that implicit data, right? And the first basic implicit data, right, is who are they, right? Are they can you classify them as buyers or sellers, right? Because you have both in your system. And if you just have Brad McDaneil, 925, and then, I don't know if this guy came in as a buyer or a seller, right? I don't know if I met him at Starbucks or he called me from the radio. Is this where people are failing? Like, are agents failing in recognizing that their database is an asset and then just doing what they can, right? Using their own personal intelligence to start to sort and match the data?
I think agents are fantastic salespeople. I grew up with a real estate family. My brother, my father's been in forever. They're really good at going out and getting belly to belly and being in that riveting conversation, and then they move on to the next and the next. And they know they're supposed to cultivate these relationships for long, but they don't have time. Then they have to go to a baseball practice for their son or whatever it is. So I think that there's a lot of things vying for agents this time where they all know they should and want to do a better job at the database, kind of nurturing. But it's hard to do because what actually pays them is the listing or the buyer who says they want to buy the house with an accepted offer and all the negotiations that go on in between, that marketing side, unless they end up with that kind of trough and valley, which most agents do, for the ones that successful agents find a way to solve that, right? To where they smooth out that curve. So it's constantly just business, not, feast and famine,
right,
as they go along. And in order to do that, most teams and agents have to have someone on their team, even though they might be a good marketer, they might seem like a bad marketer if they don't do the things they know they should do. Right. And so working with a professional that can do that for them or with them to some degree, or find an automation platform that can do some of the touch points is a game changer to some teams. Right. And I've worked in that world for a long time, and I saw that change. But even like take Keller Williams, we back in my market leader days, that was one of our accounts I was a product guy on. And, we saw when we gave them the free account versus the paid account, the login rates, even for a free CRM, almost fully enabled, not every bell and whistle, but it would get the job done, and it was tuned for them, right? Like the monthly active users, it was like 5% maybe of the people with that account would log in. It was just once a month. Now, if someone paid $99 a month and kind of valued it and was investing in their platform, the login rate jumped to about 92%, right? Monthly active users. And so it was this obvious divide between, do I invest in this, or maybe they're invested in a different platform. I don't know, because I know it's very fragmented, right? But the ones who are in, for this example.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Sorry, man. I go towards, like, I'm a marketer at heart, and I just saw a massive problem that I saw agents, lenders, real estate investors needed to solve. Sounds like you are too, and your audience probably gravitates towards that. I want to help solve this. And the place that I saw with the biggest problem that no one was addressing was kind of the very top of the funnel. That is, how do I put really high quality audiences into an automation platform that can then do the work? And over the last, 8 years, you go to all the different conferences, there's always a gazillion, now all in one platforms and this and that. And maybe their logos are different colors, right?
Right.
It's hard to delineate between the two. And I said, okay, this was about 4 or 5 years ago. I'm like, that's going to continue. There's going to be the winners and losers there. But once they're done, kind of that dust has settled a bit, they're going to be looking for audiences to put into that. Right now, they were plugging in, online leads that they were generating themselves from PPC, and then Zillow started to take over. And what are they going to do if Zillow decides to become, to take more of that retail business? Because they've got 3 consecutive profitable quarters. It's literally paying for everything else that Zillow is doing right now.
Right.
What if they say, hey, rather than that, that referral fee, what if we just pick the winners in each area and make them part of our team, right? And just flip that switch overnight. Like, what would 80% of the market do?
Right.
Right.
I think that's a real risk. That is a very real risk, especially with Zillow's, we'll buy it. And there's a bunch of people doing this, but that's where Zillow's putting their money in terms of AI is making that value prediction or purchase prediction price better. And so what happens when the agent gets squeezed out of the process because, it just doesn't make any sense. I just go to AI, they know exactly what it's valued, they know what it can start at. I save the commissions, and it's a lot less headache, right? It's a lot. I have, in a lot of ways, I think when it comes to trust, right? I feel like people would trust the technology, right? First, rather than taking a trust on Brad or Toby, right? Because, I don't know Brad or Toby, but I do know that Zillow's been around forever, and geez, they're a big company, and they must be ethical. They must have integrity. So when they say my house is worth X, I'm sure it's fine, right? What happens when that gets, and Zillow's a lot better marketer, right? So we as agents need to learn how to create better value, more value along the way, right? And of course we need to learn how to dig out more value from our assets that we have, i.e. our database. And I don't think, I guess when it comes to AI and agents, right? I think our job as marketers, or at least my job as this podcast host, right? Like I need to help the people bridge the gap between do it all on their own and then trust this company whatever with AI, some technology that nobody understands except for the company, the engineers at that company, right? Like that's too big of a chasm for people to jump. Some people will jump it, and if the AI company or the marketing company works, then they're winners, right? They're first to market, they win, and everybody else is out of that, right? They lose first mover advantage. So my job is to help people cross that chasm, I think, and
Yep.
and I don't know the best way to do that, right? I don't know it. I don't know how to. I mean, this is your world. I mean, maybe I'm sure you've thought about this much deeper than I have.
I've definitely thought about it. I don't know if I've thought about it more than you or better than you in any way, but I think that the key component here is friction, right? I mean, whenever there's friction involved in leveraging anything, you have this drastic drop off of adoption. And what Zillow's done is created over time by acquisitions and internal innovation is almost a frictionless pipeline from someone coming to a national portal to a referral sitting in your inbox for a high ticket price, right? And because I look at the agent and lender population, there's really three legs to this stool, right? I mean, and I come from this world, so I take these on all positive, but cheap, lazy, and paranoid. Cheap meaning,
right.
Hey, I only want to pay for something if I know there's value coming back. Lazy, not because I don't like to work. They're working really hard. They're good at being in that belly to belly living room conversation. So don't make me do something I don't know how to do, technology or connect things or stuff like that, right? And paranoid, they think that everyone else is going to have that same lead, right? So you kind of have to shield it in a way, and a referral is a great way to do that. So Zillow's captured those three kind of pillars or pain points in a way that's effective. Now, what's scary and what I do believe agents need to solve, at least I would say start hedging on, is in a world, if we track Rich Barton and his, rise with Expedia and now with Zillow, we're kind of in that April 1998 phase right now. If you go back and look at that timeline, where, eventually what happened, right? There wasn't any travel agents anymore, and everyone knows those analogies, but sometimes we forget, how similar those timelines are if you actually lay them over each other. And I strongly do believe that because there's an opportunity and because they said they were never going to become a brokerage, right, and then they did at the beginning of this year, we know where this goes. They're building out their ability to do cash offers market by market. At the same time, they're building their retail side quietly by picking kind of their preferred agents in every market or teams in every market. So what happens at some point is they decide to flip off that switch to stop selling leads or drastically reduce them to where they're almost worth nothing. And they make that offer, and either they go down the path of, hey, here's a cash deal, no showings, and it's ours, or hey, you want the retail side, this is our person in that area, and they're awesome because we anointed them to be awesome. Mm-hmm. And everyone else that's in the game is going to have to find ways to grow their business kind of offline, right? Because what else are they going to have to do, right? So what do they do today to kind of get ready for that? I think long tail SEO is one thing they can be doing. Podcasts like what you're doing, video casting, but using long tail terms that are like hardwood floors and condos in Portland, or something that's not condos in Portland, right? Or dog-friendly pool parks in, Austin, Texas, whatever it is, but start to become that mayor and have that long tail kind of draw from Google, because Google wants to sell ads, right? Zillow wants to sell homes, looks like right now, right? And eventually, I don't think they'll be selling leads at some point. And if you just look at that analogy between, how productive an agent is at Redfin, right? So I pulled some stats, like 42 sites for transactions per year for Redfin, and they've got about 85 million unique visitors a month, right? If Zillow, who has 302 million unique visitors a month, if you just said, okay, if they were as productive per unit, right, based upon that volume, Zillow's agents would be doing 149 sites per year, And so if you look at about 1.4 million agents right now, and there's, roughly, 6.4, including new home builds. If you just exclude new homes, it's about 5.5, 5.6, transactions per year, right? You need 42,000 agents. You don't need 1.4 million.
Right.
Right. If Redfin took over the world, you need 153,000 agents. It's like, whoa, hold on. That's a huge drop. And that's what's happening. I think what's happening in the next 3 to 4 years. You see a migration, and then one day it'll just flip.
Sure. It just happens like overnight. You're like, wait a second, the world is different. What just happened? I mean, I was there. Yeah. I was in '98. I was in Silicon Valley running co-founded. Yeah, I co-founded a company. We raised like $8 million. Anyhow, that was when $8 million. You needed $8 million. But the thing that, if we go back to '98, because you mentioned that, right? If we go back to '98, the thing that was so magical and why all of a sudden travel agents were gone is that the internet provided transparency, right? Like, you're like, okay, like it now is now I can see all the flights. I can see Delta, Southwest, whatever, right, in one query. And whereas before you had to get on the phone. I remember that, right? It was insane. Like, okay, what about this day? What about this day? So
yep.
So
but what also came with that, right? What came with that was that there was a massive fight for bookings. Bookings equal listings in the real estate world. And it also was a race to the bottom at that point.
That's right. Well, right.
So that's huge price drop off.
You're exactly right. So you increase transparency, which the real estate world overall is shrouded in clouds, right? And people like it that way. People like, it all being mysterious, like, oh crap, this is what I get at the closing table, right? Like, so and then what you were talking about, like how agents can combat this sort of thing, is you mentioned going offline, right? And you said podcasts, right? It's building trust, right? So you have to be transparent,
building trust,
and then you have to have trust. And that's the only way I think people are going to win. There's always going to be, and so then it becomes, right, if we can get people to that point, right, then it becomes what Zillow and everybody else has to fight against. Here's the problem with agents, right? Like, everybody looks the same. Everybody sounds the same, right? So how do I trust you more than this guy? How do I, and when it comes to trust, like, how good are you at what you do, or how much how ethical are you, or how much integrity do you have, right? So
I think there's two ways. I think the way you can stand out, right, is something that you started with, right? It was just the database. And that's why we've invested in that side, because we believe in what you just said at the beginning of this. And that they need to create that into an asset that's something that persists. Because when agents retire, they have nothing to sell. Yet you look at other industries like insurance brokers, they sell the book of business. Right. That's because they maintained it. They have a real relationship with it. And one of our clients, Stephen Gendel in New Jersey, he's an OP of a market center. Basically, they own New Jersey. What's awesome, what he's done with some of our stuff, and I'm not trying to pitch our stuff, just great examples of people building trust, is he's used both of our products, but he then reached out to them using these invitation-sized hand-addressed envelopes every other week. And now he has people that were on our prediction files that was just coming in. And he's like, Brad, they call me and go, well, yeah, we're going to sell with Steve because he sent us 5 invitation cards over the last 2 months, right? And it's because it was a timing, having a database that was up to date, and then being able to proactively have personalized touches within it, started that it's like a magnet, right? Mm-hmm. People start coming towards you because it's not clickbait. It's like a nice little card, and people open them, and it's not a glossy that they knew they printed off 10,000 of them for the lowest possible price. It was like, wow, someone actually took the time, and that is, huge returns for him and many of our other customers have implemented that trust nurture strategy.
Right. Okay. Perfect. And I think this is kind of where I wanted to, and hopefully everybody's following us right now. But so an agent can use AI to augment, to enhance what they're currently doing. See, when people think of Zillow or something, right? How they think of it is, I have $1,000 a month, and I'm going to go buy leads from Zillow, right? So in their mind, they're buying cold leads, and all that there's no connection, right? There's nothing between me and that lead other than I now have this dude's number and his cell phone, and I also know that he has some sort of intent, right? Because he reached out to Zillow. Whereby what you just explained, right? You have this guy who has an asset, his database. He has some sort of tenuous connection with those people in that database. Then you apply some sort of secret sauce, right? Something there to sort and match, right? You apply some sorting mechanism, and then I just have to reach out to these people with a good message or a message that fits their situation, right? If I send out a card to a seller and I go and if I send out the wrong side card, right? If somebody's a buyer and I send them a bunch of seller-oriented information, right? I'm going to get less than nothing because now people are going to go, this guy's just a bad actor, right? And I hope I'm making this clear. I think I'm mudding up the waters, but my point is these agents need to build, like, the first thing they need to think about is they have the responsibility, if they want to grow their business and have a long-lasting business that they can maybe someday sell. Their job today is building this database, and then later we can apply some sort of sorting mechanism, right? Whether that's some sort of AI software or something else. Am I seeing this right or no?
I would agree. I completely agree that having an asset in a more or less transactional industry over time becomes exponentially more valuable to you.
Right.
And that's where we see a lot of stumbles, and it could be because it's a shiny object, so you try this and then you try that, and before you know it, you've got your contacts duplicated in 6 different places, but they don't talk. Then which one's current, and it becomes a mess. And then what do? Okay, well, I got so many of these things, or maybe I buy so many leads from Zillow that the only choice you have is to hire some automation firm to come in and try to stay in touch with everybody for you. It's generic. It comes off generic. Everyone knows it's generic. And so, that is starting to decrease in value.
Right.
Whereas if you, do that building of a database or hire someone to help you just consolidate, and then subscribe to our service. And we offer something. There's other people that offer something. There's things you can do manually, right? Where you don't even need to pay any extra money for if you're getting going, is to reach out to them at the right times, right? We had someone once tell us that we built something where people were driving down the street, and it's that guy, or a girl starts looking and noticing for sale signs and the names on the signs. Or if they're walking into a restaurant and they're picking up the newspaper of what's going on and, what listings are on the market. They're not actively out asking agents or getting pre-approved or doing all these things that could throw up signals. We found ways to find signal that wasn't digital. And that was what was like, holy crap, that was awesome. So you have to be able to do that to some level. Now, yes, you can apply some rules of thumb, whatever your industry or your niche within your market. Maybe it's age or time they've lived there or types of properties or stage of life or whatever it is that you believe you fit best with, like in that your brand connects with. Great. Do that. Whatever puts money and closings into, your column, we're huge advocates for. We just find that a lot of people have a challenge, and sometimes it's just a time challenge, right? It's like I only have 24 hours, and like 23 hours of that's booked up because I have to sleep sometimes. And I love Arnold Schwarzenegger once kind of broke that down. Because people, what it comes down to is you must sleep faster.
That's funny.
I'm like, dude, I love you, man.
But here's what I think people need to understand, right? Like, sure, you're tired, you need to sleep, yes, right? And you're busy with appointments or whatever, and you don't have time to send out those cards or send those emails. What people need to realize is the world. Right, we just said this earlier, but the world is moving towards Zillow's going to get to a point where agents may become travel agents, right? They may get disintermediated. I think they will be. Just how fast, right? Is it 3 years? Is it 5 years? Is it later? Who knows, right? But that's where the world is going to automate this, because a lot of the stuff that an agent does is routine. Okay, so if that's the case, and if people can get that in their mind, then the position they need to put themselves in is going, okay, right now, today, Zillow is my biggest competitor. What is Zillow doing that I'm not doing, right? And what I know for a fact is, I don't care how big your database is, right? Once I sign up with Zillow for something, I request something, whatever. I'm getting emails from Zillow, right? Zillow's keeping in contact, and they are keenly aware of what sort of implicit data that I've given them, and that's what they're responding to me with. And me as the agent, if I'm not doing that, I'm losing right now. So if we see that the world is migrating towards a more transactional, more automated way, like, we must realize that is who we're competing against, right? So
that is exactly right. Exactly right. And I'd take it to that something to fight that right now, right? Doing this analogy between travel and real estate and online bookings versus listings, it's focused on the listings, right? Because back in the Expedia fight, they were fighting, these portals were fighting over bookings. Bookings were owned by airlines, right? Agents can own an airline, a mini airline, because they're owning the listing. That means that their information has to be put out with that listing everywhere it goes, right? So if you can own the listing side as an agent, you're going to grow your private fleet of mini planes. If you focus on the buyer side exclusively, you're always going to be reliant on a search portal because, man, I work there. Like, we optimize for pictures. We call it, real estate porn, because everyone looks at the $2 million, $3 million listing, buys the $200,000, $300,000 home. There's a lot of people looking, not buying. So a lot of false positives when it comes to signal. Yet if you own the listing, that means you have a listing agreement, and everywhere digitally that listing's represented, so are you.
Yeah, and you own that forever, right? Like that. The only way you're slowly gaining market share, kind of, right? Like because I can always. It's kind of like being interviewed by Forbes one time, right? I always get to say I was on Forbes, right? If I sell that one house on that super desirable street 5 years ago, doesn't matter. Hey, I sold that house, right? I have a foothold in that. So I agree. There's value there, and I think that people need. I hope people digested what you just said, right? Like every listing it's digitally there forever, and there's value to that, right? What value? But you can make an argument for how little or how much, but there's certainly value there. Okay. So,
man, I can riff with you for a long time. I love your approach on this, but I don't want to take up all of your time.
No. What are you talking about? It's our time.
As long as you like.
We have like 15 minutes left. So the deal is, what do people do, right? Because let me ask a very specific question right now, right? We're recording this, what day is today? June 21st. June 21st, we're recording this thing, right? Right now, we have been in an artificial inventory problem, right? And it's artificial. Yep. There's been no supply there because artificially, right, we said, okay, there's no evictions and there's no foreclosures. Okay, so you don't kick anybody out. Nobody's going to move, right? Nobody has to pay, right? We've created an artificial problem. Where do you think opportunity is right now, and how do people go capture that?
I think that's a great question. I think that the $5.5 million gap and what's required is going to be very hard for builders to make up. Even if they build, somehow they figure out how to do 2 million units per year. Right now, I think they're on track for like 1.5 this year, even though they're getting faster. It's going to take a decade, right? So there's going to be this inventory issue. Now, people can argue that stat different ways. But I think that there's a lot of merit behind it, whether it's a decade or 4 years or whatever the number ends up being. It's going to be here for a while, right? So how do you capitalize on a industry that now is predominantly, a seller market because of artificial pieces, like you were mentioning, combined with high price for lumber and other commodities, raw materials that are required for housing markets to actually boom and make it cost effective for people to go buy land and then build their own. I think that there's a couple of things you could do, and I'm going to just come off the cuff here. I don't really have anything really thought about this too much right now. But if I was an agent, I would partner with home builders. I think that it's going to be a tough sell because they don't feel like they need to pay agents anything. So you have to bring something else to them, some way to partner with them, going, hey, if I was using my products, I would say, hey, let's refresh your database together. I'm going to pre-fetch all the people that have ever signed up on a form because we know you're not cultivating that very well because we don't do it either. Let's do that, and then let's co-brand out. And I'll take the buyers, we'll bring the sellers in, and we'll create some type of spiff on that side so that way I get paid back for my marketing spend. But partner with them in that way, kind of bring intelligence to them because they are really good at home building, right? Just like lenders are really good at lending, agents are really good at selling homes. Everyone in the industry is not really creative when it comes to the marketing side of things. So think of it in different ways, right? The second thing would be if you're going to go digital, think of other ways to go digital, right? To continue your marketing efforts and capitalize on this kind of prolonged seller's market, is to maybe use something like geo-addressable. It's something that some people have heard about, some people haven't. I think it's really interesting from the standpoint of creating brand awareness. I don't think it's that effective at an acquisition channel, but I think combined with an acquisition channel like a calling or some type of newsletters or whatnot, the geo-addressable is, just to kind of summarize for your audience, is where basically every property has been indexed and the lot line has been indexed. And then when a mobile device goes within that lot line boundary, they can be targeted with display ads. So that can be a phone, a laptop, a connected television, in a variety of different manners, everything from over-the-top TV commercials to just display ads. It is very effective at brand awareness. And we know this because right before elections, the per impressions, I think per unit or per house, goes from, somewhere on like the order of like 20 to 30 a month up to like 150. Campaigns pour money into this thing because it's all about brand awareness. They've already made their arguments for their positioning statements and so forth. So I'm not going down the political side too much, just that it is an effective vehicle to not pay Zillow, to not have to kind of jump into the iOS 14 mess over at Facebook and be caught in the special ad category or being rebuked or whatnot. This is on Google Display Network. This is everywhere else on the unwalled gardens of the internet.
Right. And
that, I think, also has value.
Look, I agree. And I think both those things, right? Going to the builders, and again, not every market building is happening, right? I'm in San Diego, and not only are commodity lumber, right, everything else expensive, but to build something new, it's ridiculously expensive because now all of a sudden, right, you have to have overhead sprinklers, and just your cost per square foot is just in some areas it just doesn't make sense, right? The comps don't support building a house from the ground up. So in both those things that you outlined, which I think are great ideas, I think the overall argument that you're making is, right, the agent needs to be a good marketer, right? If I'm going to go partner with a builder, I have to go, hey, builder, you're good at building houses, man. I'm good at selling them. Right. And you need to be good at selling them. Right. And have an idea. OK, I'm going to take your database. I'm going to scrub it. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to apply some sort of, sorting mechanism software like yours or somebody else's. Right. And we're gonna now specifically target these people. Right. And then the geo thing's a different thing. But yeah. So I think that, again, the argument you're making is, number one, we need to be great marketers if we're going to succeed and thrive in this coming 4 year of inventory, whatever it might be.
And also I think niche as well, and like
for sure,
maybe being personal and picking a niche. I mean, I think one area that I haven't heard a ton about, you might have heard a lot more because of the lens you look the market through. Is just opportunity zones. Where you can go in there, and because of the shortage, you actually can do some pretty interesting things with the 1 to 4 units, or if you want to go. Right. Even in the commercial side of residential. Well, I guess that's oxymoron, but you get my point.
Sure.
Is like there's a lot of incentives to find deals in places like that right now from a tax advantage.
Right.
That I don't think I think everyone's kind of like just pull back and what do I know? Let's do that and try to do better marketing. But I'm kind of failing to a degree. So let's leverage tools or people, right? And those help. But then picking a niche, right? So maybe it's infill or rezoning in San Diego or areas with where you really can't build, right? Or maybe it is finding opportunity zones that are needing some redevelopment capital. Partnering with there's lots of firms out there now that have raised huge sums of money to go after these opportunity zones, but usually need that person on the ground that know the market in order to feel comfortable deploying that capital there. Sure. Because there's a lot of opportunity zones. So I think that there's those kind of things.
Right. And I think there's we're into a different sort of category now, but there's all sorts of, but that's okay. We're going to wrap up with this, but there's all sorts of opportunity, right? So if you are in most parts of America, right, if there are older houses that are 2 bedrooms, 1 bath. Well, we know in today's market, right, like today's world, like if you have 1 bath, that property is obsolete. right? And you might be able to add, let's say, $30,000, put in a second bathroom on, but you've added $100,000 in equity, right? There's lots of areas here in San Diego that in the South Bay, which are not, that's nearer the border, but there are waterfront houses, right? Old waterfront houses where you can put on a second story dirt cheap and add $180,000, $200,000 worth of value because now you have a view of the ocean, right? So there's tons of opportunities. And again, I guess maybe the takeaway for everybody is that they need to start looking at the world a little bit different, right? Because we are in a different market. And the world is going to, as we emerge from this pandemic and our inventory problems, right? Technology is rapidly taking up the slack. And so, all in there, man. I'm sorry.
Can I offer one more thought
Yeah.
I just had with what you're saying is that I think another opportunity, like in this current market, knowing what the data and kind of what the trends are going to be probably for the next couple of years, is looking to opportunities for partnerships. What I mean by that is let's say you're an agent in downtown San Diego or have a team there, and there's this reverse migration occurring. Find wherever that your market's feeding a rural market. So if you're in New York, it's going into New Jersey. In New Jersey, you're going further. And you kind of do that one hop step out. Find someone to partner with that's great in those markets and create a good relationship with them because I think that reverse migration is not going to stick for everybody. It's going to start coming back the other way. Monetize it going both ways. And I think you're going to be set up to add some additional revenue to your business just from doing what those people were going to do anyways, but you're helping them. So you hopefully, if you do it right, they remember you when they come back.
Fantastic. This is my last question, and we'll tell people where they can find you. So I usually ask what your morning routine or habit is, and you can answer that. I'd be interested, but what I'm more interested in, right, especially with the AI space that you're in. Like what are the things that you read every day? Like what are 3 websites or places that you go to consume information about how the world has changed in the last 24 hours or week or whatever it might be?
Good question. There's a lot of sources of AI content. A lot of it's fluffery, puffy, whatever you want to call it, that doesn't have a lot of substance, or it's designed specifically for a data scientist, and a normal person reading it would be like, I have no idea what they're talking when they say GX boost a dozen times in here. Like, what is hyperparameter tuning? I don't know. Like, when you get into that side, I haven't found a great site that has kind of that normalization of, super data science to ordinary, applied use cases. We go, oh, that's kind of cool. Huh. So I do a lot of kind of scouring of the internet. Medium actually has a decent, some decent content by different people. My morning routine, man, I'm up at 4:30. Usually working. My wife and I trade off who gets to work out in the morning, and then I'm usually working for the other hour and a half before anyone wakes up. And that time in the morning for me allows for almost probably a whole another day of productivity. And so all those tasks that, once the day starts, it's impossible to really gain traction on. So marketing efforts or a thought piece on something, or wanted to record this or write about that, things that can enhance your marketing from let's say long tail perspective, or, really thinking about a campaign. Those are the things I think are really valuable to do in those morning hours. And, from what's coming next and what kind of, when I'm reading these things, what are some of the things that I find interesting that could be valuable for agents? If the people that I know or any representation of the market, I think copywriting is a challenge. And I think that there are several tools out there now, and we use one of them ourselves for our business, where you have an idea of what you want to write, but you can't take it to that next level. AI is really good at that. They can transform a small snippet into like a blog post or an entry to a blog post, or ideas for how to hook people into watching another video or whatnot. I would say check those out. If that's an area where you've always wanted to be better at, especially from an SEO perspective, it's just drawing attention. So you're not saying the same thing everyone else is. I think that'd be a tool that would also benefit.
And is there? I'm sorry. Did you say a name that people can check out? I didn't hear. I didn't hear you say that.
Oh no, I didn't. So the one that we use, conversation.ai. They're an Austin company, so it knew them through some other networks, and then there's probably 4 or 5 competitors to those guys, but it's a pretty slick thing, man. And for someone who's always wanting to generate unique content, it's like $20 or $50. I mean, it's cheap. Right. And you get a ton of words. I mean, it's very helpful.
Cool. Well, that's awesome. So if anybody wants to reach out to you, Brad, where can they find you?
So they can find us at likely.ai, and kind of look around on the site, fill out one of our forms if you'd like to get in touch with us, or you can email us at moredeals@likely.ai.
Awesome.
Sorry, get more deals.
Get more deals.
Sorry, man. It's been a while.
Bradley. All right, man. Hey, buddy, I very much appreciate you taking the time.
Hey, thank you for having us on. And if anyone wants, even just to understand more about what we do, we would love to talk to them. Yeah. Email us at moredeals@likely.ai or find us at likely.ai.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Thank you very much, Toby.
I just want to break in here real quick with a quick word from our sponsors. If you want to turbocharge your business, we all do. Everybody wants everybody wants to make more money. And if you want to make more money, you have to reach a ton of people with the right message. And there's only one method, there's only one channel that works consistently in every market, and that is radio. So if you want to dominate your market, your geography, your city, town, you have to get on radio. My radio expert are great at identifying, isolating the perfect demographic, people who own homes and are probably willing to sell. And there's nobody better at writing copy that moves the needle. Go to myradioexpert.com, fill out the getting started sheet, and you get a free 30-minute strategy session. See if radio is right for you.